Well, we began the news at 4 o'clock remembering the life of Pope Francis. The Pope died early this morning at the age of 88. His passing comes less than 24 hours after he delivered the traditional Easter blessing to the crowds at the Vatican. Well, 2 hours ago, the Vatican released his cause of death. They say he died from a stroke that led to a coma and heart failure. Thank you for being here with us. For the news at 4 o'clock, I'm Lorenzo Hall.
And I'm Leslie Foster, and you can see people across the world are paying tribute to Pope Francis, and that includes right here in our nation's capital. Our Simone D'Alba is live at the Basilica right now in Northeast D.C. And Sim, we know a lot of people have shown up there today to pay their respects.
Leslie, Zoe, I mean, you said it. Pope Francis meant a lot of different things to a lot of different people, right? And so people have been coming out here today, kind of filtering out from all walks of life, paying their respects to a pope who, for many of them, is a symbol of comfort. In fact, we heard the 88 bells tolling early this morning for Pope Francis. Of course, he died at the age of 88. He was last here in 2015, and that was to canonize Junipero Serra, the first saint canonized on U.S. soil. Just yesterday, on Easter Sunday, the Pope made a public appearance to give his traditional Easter blessing. He appeared from the balcony at St. Peter's Basilica, and he greeted the crowd. We saw him do this in the Pope-mobile. And then earlier Sunday, he met with Vice President J.D. Vance. Of course, we saw this around the world. You're looking at some pictures here from that visit. The Pope, of course, giving Vance a tie. He gave him rosaries, and then 3 large chocolate Easter eggs for Vance's children. Vance posted online this morning saying, quote, "My heart goes out to the millions of Christians all over the world who loved him. I was happy to see him yesterday, though he was obviously very ill. May God rest his soul." Now, President Donald Trump also reacting to the Pope's death. He says, quote, "Rest in peace, Pope Francis. May God bless him, and may God bless all who loved him." We spoke with Father Aquinas Gilbo, the university chaplain at Catholic University, and really he talked about this sense of sadness that you can kind of feel all throughout. You know, followers of the church, people here at the Basilica all morning have kind of expressed this feeling of sorrow, right? And so he wanted to talk about the fact that the church is just now beginning to enter this period of mourning.
Here locally, parishes around the Archdiocese of Washington will begin the mourning period. There's a traditional mourning period with the passing of every pope. That's accompanied by various devotions. On campus tonight here at Catholic University, we'll have a rosary at 9:30 with the students. But then there's a series of masses that'll be offered throughout the mourning period that will lead up to the funeral and then to the conclave, which will take place probably in about 10 days, 2 weeks' time.
Now, with the Pope's passing comes the long process to pick his successor. And of course, there's a lot that goes into this. While there are 252 cardinals, only those under the age of 80 can actually vote in the conclave. Now, as of March 1st, that leaves 137 electors. So eligible cardinals gather at the Sistine Chapel. They take an oath of secrecy before that first vote. And as I touched on before, we are barely at the beginning here of the mourning phase. So there is much to come still. Of course, the Catholic Church is very traditional, so there's a lot of steps we have to go through before we can even begin talking about something like a Pope's successor. Our Matthew Torres continues our coverage for us today at the Cathedral of St. Thomas More in Arlington. After the Chancellor of the Catholic Diocese of Arlington. And Matthew, I understand that he had a really special connection with him.
Yeah, he served the Pope in different capacities, including as his interpreter at the Vatican for several years. Today, he and church members remembered Pope Francis as a leader who opened his arms to all.
If keeping your faith is a pillar in life, Maria Aguilar has cemented herself in the Catholic Church.
Just prayed this morning.
In the pews of the Cathedral of St. Thomas More in Arlington,
the Lord be with you.
Aguilar joins the congregation to pray for Pope Francis.
I was sad.
The first pontiff from Latin America and the first to be Jesuit died Easter Monday morning. To Aguilar, he helped Catholics rediscover their faith.
They saw in him a little bit someone that opened the door for them.
For Pope Francis, each of us had dignity.
For the Chancellor of the Catholic Diocese of Arlington,
it really is like losing a father, because he was a father to certainly all the Catholic faithful throughout the world, but to so many others.
The Holy Father was someone he worked closely with on several occasions.
Blessed to be able to sit right next to him.
Monsignor Paul Della Durante was appointed to the Vatican in 2018 to work for the Secretariat of State. Part of his role was to interpret for the Pope in several meetings, including with the President of Ireland 2 years ago, and this hour-and-a-half-long sit-down with President Joe Biden in 2021. Then there was the roughly 10-minute interaction with movie star Sylvester Stallone.
The Pope said, "Yeah, Rocky, here in the Vatican." And Sylvester Stallone then said, "You want a box?" And the Pope, without missing a beat, threw a perfect left jab just like that. And I thought to myself, I don't think Stallone knows that the Pope had been a bouncer at a nightclub before he entered the Jesuits. I was just trying not to laugh out loud, because it was very funny.
But whether his interactions were brief or long, Della Durante says Pope Francis maintained dignity for everyone. His commitment to what he called a missionary church is part of the legacy.
To make sure that those who are vulnerable, who are poor, who are marginalized, are not forgotten.
He brought a lot of people to believe.
The Chancellor also says one of the most powerful moments that he witnessed was seeing Pope Francis address the world during the height of the pandemic. He also says even though they did make mistakes, he recalls the Pope being gracious and patient. Simone?
You know, Matthew, I think you touched on a really good point, which is for so many people, they remember Pope Francis as someone who is witty, charming, warm, also a leader of one of the biggest churches on the planet. Appreciate you reporting on that for us tonight. Thank you. There will be a Rosary Vigil at Catholic University. That is tonight, happening at 9:30. And coming up at 4:30, we're going to talk a little bit more about the conclave and the process, the tradition that goes into this iconic process of selecting that next pope. Leslie, Zoe, we'll send it back to you in the studio.
Yeah, we know this is a long process for so many. When we think of that next pope, we think of the white smoke, that signature white smoke that you see when all is done. But
so much will happen between now
and then. Absolutely. Simone, thank you. Right now, streaming on WUSA 9+, we've got a special From the Archives, looking back at Pope Francis's visit here to Washington, D.C. back in 2015. You can relive that day through our coverage. Download the WUSA 9+ app on your TV and watch it for free.